Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see so many people here. Right, how do we do this? Who knows what that is? So this is what I'm going to try and cover today. What is Northern Programmes? I think we've probably... how many people know what Northern Programmes is? Not that many. We've confused a lot of people with the name of this programme, so hopefully I'll help you out there. Some of the challenges on Northwest electrification. I think you've heard about AutoCore this morning, I think, so hopefully you're impressed with that. James is then going to cover Trans-Pennine route upgrade. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the future pipeline scope that's coming through to this area, and then if we get time, there's a bit of cool tech stuff which you might be interested in. So, Northern Programmes is not any of these things. I think you've heard what Northern Powerhouse Rail is. Northern Powerhouse was the sort of vision of George Osborne, wasn't it, about what we're going to do with the North, and that was not only transport, but it was technical and connectivity and all sorts of other things. So Northern Hub is a bit of Northern Programmes, but it's not the whole thing. HS2, HS3, Transport for North, you all know about now. So skipping on to what it is. So it's part of Network Rail infrastructure projects. It was created in August 2016 from existing components of IP Central and IP SNE. So why would you do that? Well, it provides an integrated capability aligned with TOCs and key stakeholders across the North. So hopefully that makes sense. Previously we had delivery units of IP infrastructure projects which was split and therefore didn't face our customers. So that's one of the key points, but also clearly we're going to be trying to share resource and share lessons learned, all that good stuff. So that's really what the leadership team on Northern Programmes is focused on now. So you can see here, these are the sort of four main components of Northwest of Northern Programmes. The electrification stuff that you'll have heard about, an enhancements portfolio, which is lots of bits and bobs, but cumulatively it's really significant. Trans-Pennine and AutoCore, so there you go. And yeah, we're talking big numbers. And I don't know about you, but it's great to be in the industry at this time, isn't it, in the North? Over £1 billion worth CP5. Goodness knows how much more in CP6. Trans-Pennine could be. I don't know what I'm supposed to say there. Many pounds. So I'm not going to touch on AutoCore much, other than to show you this, which is well, let's see. Doesn't have the feel-good Network Rail music, I'm afraid, but hopefully you can get the idea. How many people have seen this? It's been doing the rounds, but it's pretty impressive stuff. So I think Matthew talked about this a lot this morning. Perhaps not the bridge stuff quite so much, but any engineer in the room that isn't excited by two cranes trying to lift 300 tons of steel over a river shouldn't be in here, should he?
600 tons.
There you go. So that's what, a 1350 and a 700 ton crane?
750 and a 1350.
Yeah.
Tandem lift asymmetric, different radii over the river. Quite great stuff.
Awesome. So this got huge coverage, didn't it, in the media? I have to admit to maybe having gone skiing, so which was great. But anyway, there you go. It was booked. Let me do this. So Northwest electrification. So quite a few of my slides cover this because it's something that hasn't been covered elsewhere, and it's where a lot of the challenges are in the overall Northern Programmes picture. So this is the electrification sort of picture across the Northwest. You'll be aware of the completed phases 1 and 2, Liverpool, Manchester, and the Wigan route, and phases 3, 4, 5 coming. So red is TRU, and purple's the rest of Northwest. So got another feel-good movie here. This one has got the music, so I hope you'll be crying with delight at the end of this. good, that, isn't it? I think it's great that we're finding ways to publicise what we're doing to the wider community, and yeah, the music helps, doesn't it? My dad knows about this stuff before I do, because he's on some sort of Twitter feed. He phones me up and tells me it's out there. So yeah, this is the summary of what we're up to. Phases 3, 4 and 5, well and truly ongoing. This isn't just electrification, this is route upgrade. I think that's a really key point. Yeah, so you know, you look at the quants over here, we're not just putting a few wires up. So most of that is pretty well publicised already. So just a quick one, phases 3 and is largely dominated by Volker Rail as the sort of coordinating principal contractor. Network Rail are still hubbing with Siemens as a separate contract, but that one's from a contractual strategy point of view relatively straightforward, unlike this one. All sorts of historic reasons for pulling it together like this, but suffice to say that Network Rail's got a real challenge in terms of fulfilling the hub and spoke central role in there. We've manned up and reinforced ourselves, and I think we're now in a position that we can do that strongly. But yeah, it's not the way you'd start a program like this, in my view, if you really had all the choices. I've just come off the Stafford program where we had an alliance, and the incentives are all there. Everybody worked really well together, and it's a bit more of a challenge to pull this together. But we are striving to pull together an alliance-y feel about this arrangement, and we're making progress. So here's a sort of slightly more techie one about one of the challenges we face on Northwest electrification. So phase 4 especially runs through extensive mining areas. Now, I never thought I'd have to know about mining when I got into railways, but now I know painfully quite a lot about mining. So what are we doing about it? Well, you know, the obvious things are extensive trawls of mining records to make sure you understand as much as you can what's out there. So the scale of the challenge is about 270 foundations where we've got significant mining challenges that we've got to figure out what we're doing with. So we've got a geotechnical guru in our team who's done finite element analysis, developing previous work he'd done to understand better exactly how the sort of foundations we're dealing with behave over mining areas, over these mine seams. So we've basically gone down the road of trying to categorise each and every foundation in a number of categories. So we're looking at things like rock cover and superficial deposit cover, the ratios of those covers over the worked coal seam. So that starts to give us an understanding of the levels of risk involved in the foundations. So yeah, selective use of boreholes. So the challenge here is it's easy just to go and say you're going to put boreholes everywhere, you're going to spend millions, you're going to take years putting boreholes everywhere, but we've got a challenging programme and a lot of commitments to meet. So the challenge is to do this smart, not do it expensively and take ages. So that's what this sort of risk categorisation approach is about. So yeah, foundation solutions. So you sort of, more or less, your choices are steel pile, augured concrete piles, or shallow pad. And depending on the scenario, you've got a balance to weigh it between productivity, the speed you can get the foundations in, versus loading the soil and the rock cover below less significantly. So a lot of a key thing to understand here is that the risks that arise out of mining are risks that already exist. We've already got railways running through these areas, so the real key question is how much are you affecting that risk by putting these foundations in. All this work really comes to the conclusion that you're only really very minimally affecting the existing risk. So what you've got to really focus on is managing the construction risks, and those things can be dealt with through, well, we're going to be using rail-mounted plant to install the foundations. We can use exclusion zones, so you can sort of see how the issues that look really significant can start to fall away when you build up the risk management picture like this. So electrical clearances. Anyone heard of electrical clearance problems? Yeah. It's been in the press a bit, hasn't it? And that's, funnily enough, I was with the ORR this morning, hence I wasn't here. So just to sort of give you a quick overview, primarily an issue at overbridges and stations, and at overbridges there's a need to raise parapets to 1.8 metres to get compliance, and attempts to compromise on that compliance are unlikely to be successful because there's a national precedent. So obviously there's a bridge raise or track lower requirement to achieve minimum clearances between electrical components and soffits, and we're also looking at site-specific risk assessments where those clearances are less than ideal. So that gives us a solution to get overbridge issues generally sorted. So stations is the real issue. Often stations have overbridges in their close vicinity. That drives wire heights down. So what do? Well, you could raise every overbridge near every station and it would cost you a fortune, or you can try and do smarter stuff. So that's what we've been focused in over the last few months. So we're talking about achieving 3.5 metres to the pantograph. That's the real key challenge. So site-by-site assessments, and let me just scan through here and I can get to the crux of this. So this is how we are assessing the real picture, the real levels of risk. So this is a platform. These are pantograph stopping positions, depending on what stock we're talking about. Green means we've got compliance with the 3.5 metre requirement to pantograph. Orange means not quite. And so you can do various things. You can mitigate the risk at source by putting goalposts to try and stop people coming onto platforms with silver balloons above their heads and all that sort of crazy stuff. We've got a rack of things that we go through in these risk assessments. A key one is looking at this wire gradient, so working with a RAM to really compromise that gradient to the maximum sort of extent that is reasonable, and thereby maximising this green area. So I think the regulator now understands that we're doing the right things, we're taking the right measures, we're looking at all the right options. So I'm optimistic that we've got a way forward on this. So we've talked about AutoCore this morning. I've done a bit on electrification. So now enhancements, which is a pretty vague title for a programme, if ever there was one, isn't it? But it's vague because it's very broad, very so this is a list of stuff. I'm not going to read it all out, but it gives you an idea. It's all the stuff that complements the overall Northern programme's intent to get capacity, journey times, make sure we've got rolling stock capabilities and that sort of stuff. So a whole rack of things which are being done within Northern programmes, and that list is being added to on a fairly regular basis because our train operator colleagues have got franchise commitments and no other way to deliver them. Well, not many other ways to deliver them other than to ask us. So that's a growing list. So, James.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
How have we done? You all right?
Yeah, doing okay.
Good luck.
Afternoon, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is James Hodge. Been working on the railways for 26 years now. Started with BR in 1991. Spent most of my career working based in York, mostly on the design consultancy side, but more recently within the project management team on Network Rail. So I lead at least the west of Leeds portion for the Trans-Pennine route upgrade. So, going a quick overview of the route. I realise we've got the graveyard shift straight after lunch when everyone wants to fall asleep, so I've got a little stirring video to play for you in a moment. Slightly different to David's, and we've got a bit of commentary. It's more of a listening video than it is a watching video. A little bit of history of how we got to where we are, the benefits and the outputs that we're working to on the project, and the challenges that we face along the route. Can't say an awful lot about what we're proposing to do on the route because we're so much earlier in the programme than the other schemes that you've had delivered today. Very little of the proposals are in the public domain, so I need to talk, well, forced to talk more about the challenges rather than what we're actually doing. So I went through my presentation yesterday with Network Rail's communications team and ended up having to hack out about a third of my slides with things that I'm not actually allowed to say. So we've got Sarah in the front row today to make sure that I'm behaving myself. So if you see me jump at any point, it's because she's pressed the electric shock buzzer to get me to shut up. Oops. How do you go back? Not like that.
Left hand one.
Left hand one. There we go. Right. See.
It started In the north, of course, in engineers' heads, their plans unfurled across the world, and Britain steamed ahead. Through industry and artistry and cotton, steel and coal, from northern homes in northern tones they speak of northern soul. And fashion, passion, innovation, culture, commerce, trade, of grit and graft and wit and craft, of this the north is made. And railway lines would shape the times back then, just like today, when once again there's plans in train for rail to lead the way. From the platform of investment on a journey to success, we're taking the north further with the new Transpennine Express. From Newcastle to Edinburgh, from Liverpool to York, from Glasgow, Hull and Manchester, and right across the north. From Sheffield, Preston, Middlesbrough to Scarborough and Leeds, connecting, intersecting and protecting, sowing seeds for new employment, new enjoyment, new creative deals, the economy's new industries, the railways oil the wheels. From the seaside, south of Teesside, to the lakes, the Yorkshire Dales, over hills and moors and fells and dells and crags and peaks and vales. From factories to warehouses, from offices to homes, to college towns where knowledge pounds and inspiration roams. From the football grounds to rugby grounds to concert halls and shows. From the wickets at the cricket to the festivals and those amazing places, gazing faces, sounds of pounding hearts at the heritage and architecture, countryside and art. From the cities on the Irwell to the city by the Clyde, there's northern plans for northern hands to broaden northern pride. From the Humber to the Mersey, from the Ribble to the Tyne, the backbone of our nation has a tingle down her spine. And again, the rails are blazing trails from here to there to when? The north, the north, the north, the north, the north will rise again.
Okay. Hopefully you've all woke up now. I'm not sure how I can follow that one. So Transpennine route upgrade, high profile, highly important scheme for the north of England. As John said in his first address this morning, it's all about connecting east to west. So we've got a lot of schemes in the country, HS2, it's all about connecting north to south. Transpennine is a pivotal part of connecting east to west. Various names that have been proposed for the route. One of them was Transpennine Main Line. A few people got upset. We thought that Sheffield Council might get a bit upset if we create the main line that doesn't include Sheffield, so we are stuck with Transpennine route upgrade at the moment. I will have to go at a fair rate to get through what I've got to get through here. I did this presentation to the project team about a month ago. It took 2 days, so I hope you're all sitting comfortably. So Transpennine route upgrade, a reminder, going the wrong way again. Reminder of the route. So Transpennine route upgrade is a route-wide activity. So it's electrification for a portion of the route in the middle that David had on a slide a couple of minutes ago. But we're looking at journey time increases and capacity increases, which I'll cover in a second, between Manchester through to York and to Selby. So slide that David had up a few minutes ago. So it's filling in the electrification, it's filling in the gap across the Pennines. So not only does it allow Transpennine trains, the portion between Leeds and York and the East Coast Main also fills in the East Coast Main Line for a diversionary route to bring trains through Leeds and then on to the north from London, and also facilitates the East Coast to get into Leeds from the east. So it's not just Transpennine, there's other knock-on benefits associated with that. So history, how have we got to where we are? Originally, Transpennine was simply an electrification scheme, filling the gap across the Pennines. Originally with an estimate of approximately £250 million, that rapidly escalated to £650 million, at which time the DfT paused the scheme. The business case associated with it the benefits of electrification didn't deliver the outputs that they deemed it to be capable of the first time round. It achieved approximately 2-minute journey time saving along the route, whereas they thought it would do more than that. So standalone electrification didn't have a full business case, which is why it was paused. I'll explain why it only gained 2 minutes in a moment. So started off with electrification, paused in 2014. The scheme was restarted in November 2015 with a few more additions. So we've still got electrification, but we now want to increase capacity, improve journey times, and improve performance across the route. So the original £650 million budget, and this is a bit that I can't announce, goes to a significantly higher investment. So what do we have originally? Electrification scheme, big scheme in its own right, 92 bridges along the route requiring serious modification, redecking or reconstruction. Significant number of structures. The route was originally built in the mid-1800s, lots of very low bridges along the route, so virtually all of them require redecking to facilitate the wires. 8 tunnels requiring modifications or track lowers, nearly 4,500 overhead line structures, 2 new 25 kV feeder stations, lots of catenary, troughing, immunisation works and de-veg required. So what have we got now? It's exactly the same, except we've now got up to 175 kilometres of track renewal, 4 tracking, probable 4 tracking between Huddersfield through to Ravensthorpe at Thornhill Junction, grade separated junctions somewhere in the Heaton Lodge area, various other slightly less significant but still major issues, and 45 level crossings along the route that all require safety assessments and potential closures of a significant number of those. So our outputs, which brought up a minute ago, so we've got a combination of the original requirements, so we've got 3 new outputs and 1 requirement. So the original electrification, increased capacity along the route, so we've got a proposal for 4 fast and 2 semi-fast services across the Pennines from York to Manchester. It's very similar, it's not much more than what Trans-Pennine Express are about to implement in 2019. However, this is slightly different because it's 4 fast trains on a clock face service, which is significantly more difficult to deliver than ad hoc services. Journey time improvements, up to 15-minute journey time saving between Manchester and York, with a target of 40 minutes Manchester to Leeds with 1 stop at Huddersfield, and 62 minutes Manchester to York with 2 stops. Currently approximately 75 to 79 minutes for services. Again, that's not every service, there are some faster services. We're talking about every train doing 62 minutes Manchester to York. And performance, a target of 92% passenger performance metric for a 0 to 5 minute delay regime. Very, very difficult to achieve, bearing in mind the route is currently running between 85 and 90%. Trans-Pennine are going to increase service train numbers in 2019, and we want to increase journey times in there. And there's lots of other services that the DFT want to pull in as well. So extremely difficult, that's probably our most challenging requirement. So various stakeholders with big plans, and they all have different requirements. So the requirements that just came up there, each one of them more or less comes from a different stakeholder. So we've got the DFT that are wanting faster journey times because that builds their business case. We've got Transport for the North and Rail North, who both want increased capacity along the route. We've got the talks with Trans-Pennine Express and Northern, who both want increased performance. And then we've got WYCA, West Yorkshire Combined Authority, who basically want trams and trains that stop every quarter of a mile. So lots of conflicting requirements within there. Extremely difficult to achieve all of those. So we've got an outpost-based project, which I'll talk about the difficulties of achieving that in a moment. So TPE are, with their new franchise, currently delivering in excess of 13 million seats per annum extra on the railway. They're actually delivering more than that with the stocks they've actually bought, but that was their franchise commitment. Enhanced weekend timetable, 220 new coaches, 72% of the stock will be brand new rolling stock with speeds of up to 125 miles an hour. So what are we getting? Trans-Pennine have ordered AT300s, which are class 802, so they're the bi-mode services similar to IEP that we got on Great Western and East Coast Main Line. So it's about a third of the fleet to pick up the areas of the routes that are not fully electrified or planned to be fully electrified, i.e. Scarborough, Hull and Middlesbrough. The other 2/3 of the fleet, initially our coaching stock, push-pull coaching stock with a class 68 locomotive, which is the top one. Once we've electrified that, the plan is that that diesel locomotive will be replaced for an electric locomotive. So Northern, that, I'm not sure whether that's exactly what Northern have ordered, but they've ordered CAF for their stopping services, so we've got increased performance with those. So I mentioned about electrification on its own not delivering an awful lot in the way of journey time saving. The 2 minutes journey time saving I mentioned was actually between Newcastle and York, not on Trans-Pennine. The difficulty we've got is that the Class 185 we've had for the last 10 years is actually a very high performing diesel DMU. It has virtually the same acceleration profile as a AT300 in electric mode. The only difference is the AT300 can go above 100 miles an hour. So that's why you only really got the benefit between York and Newcastle, because that was the only stretch where you could go over that high speed. We have plans to go above 100 on portions of TRU, but the current electrification only in the current route isn't that, so struggle. Other benefit, indirect benefit, electrification isn't necessarily the faster services, it's the acceleration profile of the stopping services. So we actually get the stopping services out of the way the fast quicker to increase capacity. So as I mentioned, challenges on the project, I wrote down about 30 that I would like to present it to you. I picked out 9 reasonably important ones. So comms is a good start. Communications is very, very important along the route, and giving the right story and an accurate story to the public at the appropriate moment in time. There's a lot of public consultation required with our stakeholders along the route, and we don't want bad publicity. So there's always all these potential offline schemes and major transport work schemes, closing level crossings, can be very emotive, so we're always going to get a little bit of this and that. What we're trying to avoid is that. So consents along the route. We look in a way that we've got an output-based remit. Normally the DFT will come along with an intervention, build this here, build that there. It leaves very little scope for looking at the bigger picture. On this project we have got the bigger picture. We've got all the three main outputs that are required. And I mentioned electrification being a requirement. Ultimately as a requirement, that's a method of delivering those outputs. So as with Great Western and other electrification projects, during the development we will be looking at whether electrification is good value for money or whether there are alternative, better ways of delivering the output. So it's currently in our remit. We will be helping the DFT to justify why that needs to stay in the remit or potentially not. So consents, very difficult consents. We have going to require consents at numerous locations along the route, but because we have a route-wide output, it's very important that we deal with the whole route evenly. So if we've got a tiny intervention that's nothing of a job, say somewhere near York, that's dead easy, we still need to develop that to the same level of maturity as a big major transport and works act or the scheme somewhere else. Because for lessons learned from previous consents that have been refused and also called and others, it's not what we're proposing that people have a problem with, it's proving you can't do it better somewhere else. So you do need to do a full route-wide assessment. So why can't you do, instead of working in Manchester, why can't you do that same intervention or get the same output somewhere else on the route? We have to prove that as part of the process. So we've got a very difficult option selection process to go through. So it's not which is the best interventions, it's how do those interventions all slot together. And what delivers best value for the route. So value of a second along the route changes. The highest value for a second is actually between Dewsbury and Huddersfield, then between Leeds and Dewsbury, then between Manchester and Huddersfield, and then between Leeds and York is the lowest. So they all have a different value. So the values, the cost of the schemes need to be weighted against the value of that intervention at a particular location. Geography of the route, very challenging geography. We're going over the Pennines. So just east of Standage Tunnel, there's good chunks of the route where the railway is greater than 1 kilometre from any major road. We've got major access problems to get to the railway. So what does that look like? How do we get in and construct and maintenance? That is the access track to one of the road rail access points along the route. How are you going to get a 40-tonne delivery truck up that road? You are not. There's very little scope for having delivery by road. And also with the inclement weather we got on the route, there's dangerous safety implications of getting people to and from site by road. So as mentioned, weather, being at altitude being 200 metres, not for some people, but in this country that's fairly high. The average temperature for a good chunk of the route is below 10 degrees between October through to May. So there's often snow in them there hills. That's an issue. We haven't had that much recently, but in the past, it's quite common to get 2 foot of snow that lasts for a good month on site. All work stops. How's that going to hit our programme? So major challenges along the route. I'll explain how one of the ways we potentially get around that later. Rainfall, precipitation. Again, higher rainfall than average in the Pennines, particularly this side of the Pennines. I would say that, seeing as I come from Yorkshire. Flooding in general isn't a particular problem for the route. There's a portion near York, so between Churchfent and York, where it's very low lying. Flooding does limit the speed on some of the underbridges on that portion of the route. However, the majority of the problem with precipitation on the route is actually flash floods and water coming off the hillside. So going over the Pennines, the railway's perched on the side of the hill. It's actually flash water. So that's 4 months ago in Staley Bridge. Flash water problems, so that's a road. However, we get similar thing on the railways. Morley Station, for example, whenever it rains, the access road to the station turns into a river. and the railway drains the entire area. So there's some serious issues with drainage in that area. So although it's in this really steep grading, we still get line-side flooding. Keeping passengers moving. How do we keep passengers moving while we propose building the route? So the red are our core diversion routes. So coming from York, you've got 4-track railways as far as Church Fenton, so it's two-track railways, so we can take two relatively easily and carry on operating trains on the others. We come from York to Leeds via Castleford as a diversion route, Leeds to Ravensthorpe via Wakefield, and Heaton Lodge Junction through to Manchester via the Calder Valley line. We've also got a lesser diversion route via Bradford. The reason I've coloured that differently is that Bradford is a terminus station. All trains have to reverse there. It's quite close to capacity now, so if we double the services by running all our diversion trains through there, the system won't cope. So it is a route for lesser out of hours, out of peak, but it's not a very good diversion route. So that leaves us a portion between Heaton Lodge and Ravensthorpe where we have no long-term diversion routes. That's our critical location for access and how we build the scheme. So to facilitate that, we're doing a lot of route hardening works on the diversion route. So the routes are currently delivering a lot of heavy maintenance along the red routes there, so that when we come to take longer blockades on the core route, we don't have to maintain the diversion routes. Because the potential plan on the route, a blockade strategy may result in 3-month closures of the core route. So 3 months closures, I mentioned weather earlier on. 3 months closures is actually more palatable to the TOCs to do that in the middle of summer. It's quite unusual. Their slack time, Transpennine Express's slack time, is during the university holidays. There's lots of student movements on a day-to-day basis around West Yorkshire and across the Pennines. So their preferred time to have a blockade is actually in the middle of summer. Two major advantages to that. One is the weather, and the second one is resources within the industry. We normally do our blockades at Christmas and Easter. Middle of summer, everyone's got nothing to do, he says. Nothing better to do. Okay, listed structures along the route. There's a lot of listed structures, bridges and stations, station footbridges. The main one is Huddersfield Station, Grade 1 listed. The entire station is listed. The canopy on the station isn't actually the original canopy, but that's part of the Grade 1 listing, so we've got major consents associated with any work we propose to do there. So how do we increase services, potentially increase number of platforms or through services within Huddersfield? Major consultation process required to facilitate that. Timescales on the project, this is one of our biggest challenges as well. So how do we get to where we are? So after the restart of the project, we did some preliminary work with the Department for Transport, but kicked off properly Easter of 2016. We finished Grip 1 concept, so guidance for railway infrastructure projects. So Grip 1 concept was completed in August 2016. Very, very fast Grip 2 process. Jacobs did a very good job at turning around Grip 2 for the west of Leeds portion of the scheme in 4 or 5 months. That's an amazing job. We're now through stage gate 2. That's all signed off. So now we're starting Grip 3. So we are already in the lines for east of Leeds. West of Leeds and our lines will hopefully be announced very soon. It's currently in tender. As soon as that's on board, they will have to get the skates on because they've got Grip 3 option selection to do by December this year. Extremely condensed programme, very, very challenging. So on from there, once we've got single option selections, we present to the DFTO December this year. They'll make the decision as to whether they agree with a single programme option that we've come up with. We need to progress AIP in double quick time, so a target of 2018, December 2018, with a target for delivery on site of end of 22. Very, very challenging targets, particularly if you add on the consents and possible transport and works orders that we may require for schemes along the route. That could push out the 22 scheme, but that is still our current target. So journey times along the route. So I have to keep going fast. To improve journey times, we don't necessarily need to go faster. Might sound counterintuitive. We need to avoid going slowly. When we're looking at improving journey times on a route, we need to swap around how we look at line speeds. If we think there's hours per mile or seconds per mile instead of miles per hour, you get a better idea of where you can get your best savings. So it's actually an exponential graph. So if you go from 15 to 30 miles an hour, if you double the speed, you halve the time. Double it again to 60, you halve it again. Double it again to 120, you halve it again. So for each 5 mile an hour increase, the time per mile is a much less of a chunk each time. So if we go from 25 to 30 miles an hour, it's a 24-second saving over a mile. As you go down that list, when you get to 105 to 110, that's only a 1.6 second saving. It demonstrates that hitting the low speed areas has a far better output. So put in even more context, if you do a major intervention to get 500 metres of track from 25 to 30 miles an hour, that gives exactly the same output as 5 miles of work to get from 105 to 110. That puts in context how important it is to deal with the low speed areas. So potential highest line speed proposed for the route. Blue is the existing, red is the proposed. So how do you do the pointer on this?
Top one.
Top one. So low speeds currently miles platting coming out Manchester Victoria and Staley Bridge, so 30 miles an hour and 25 miles an hour. Major line speed increases with major interventions at locations achieve in the order of 1.5 to 2 minutes apiece. When we're talking about, we've got schemes, other locations like Church Fenton spending multi-million-pound schemes to save 9 or 10 seconds. We're spending the same amount of money on a low-speed area to get 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes. It just shows the importance of dealing with the slow-speed areas. Stations like Huddersfield, Leeds and York, the trains are stopping anyway, so there's still an advantage because most trains now can get to the run, get to 40 miles an hour in the road length. So speeds within station are important for accelerating away. Entering stations, you're still restricted by the signalling aspect sequence because you're nearly always approaching a red signal at the end of a station. Capacity. So capacity issue on the route is predominantly in the middle portion here. So I'm going to zoom in a moment on that area and just show you why we've got such a conflict. So services running through the air. Trans-Pennine. So dark blue is the core route, Trans-Pennine route, and then Calder Valley in the greeny blue at the top. We've also got a new Trans-Pennine service that goes on to Calder Valley via Brighouse. So on this portion of the route we've got conflicts just between the Trans-Pennine Express services. If you add in the northern services, we've got Huddersfield to Bradford, Huddersfield to Dewsbury and Huddersfield to Wakefield services. They're all stopping services crossing the fast TRU route. We've got Grand Central that get from Bradford to London, they cross the core routes. We've got Virgin East Coast that do Huddersfield to London via Leeds, or will do, that crosses the core route, or along the core route. And then we've got freight. So we've got 9 different paths that all conflict with one another in that middle portion of the route. So capacity-wise, that is our big problem. If we're going to do anything on the project, we need to tackle this area. So there's currently 5 minutes in the programme for the conflicts, at-grade conflicts that we get at the junctions at Ravensthorpe and Heaton Lodge. So we need to do something there. So I mentioned earlier, probable four-tracking between Huddersfield and Ravensthorpe, that is the answer. On its own, it doesn't give the answer because you've still got the conflict of all the crossing moves. So probable grade separation somewhere in the Heaton Lodge area as well to get the fast trains over the top of all the slows and stopping services. Electrical clearance issues, as David mentioned earlier, an example. So we've got a station at the top, we've got a road bridge immediately afterwards with level problems and buildings that stop us lifting the bridge. So we've got to get high wire height through the station, underneath the bridge with low wire heights, and then back over a level crossing at even higher wire heights. So that's an example of some of the issues that we've got along the route. I won't go into any more detail for that one. Properties close to the railway. There's a few of these along the route. How do we deal with that? We're going to string wires up in front of everyone's windows. They own the window, they'll put their hand out the window, they can touch the wires pretty much. Very, very dangerous. So how do we deal with that? Numerous ways we can potentially deal with that. One is barrier, physical barrier. So bottom right, that was an initial proposal that was put forward, how to physically separate people from the wires. However, how do you allow people to safely maintain their properties? Yes, they're fine as they're walking along the path outside their house, but how do you clean your windows? How do you unblock your gutters? So top right is an alternative. We physically cover the railway with concrete rings, full physical separation, effectively create a tunnel. Disadvantage, obviously, it's another asset that needs maintaining long term, and a visual blight on the area because instead of that glass fence there, you've got a grass embankment immediately outside everyone's windows. Alternatively, don't wire through the station, or wire it with a neutral section. So we've ordered bi-modes for or TP have ordered bi-modes for the route. We could actually stop electrification in discrete areas. Do we not wire through problem areas or with a neutral section? Neutral section's better because A, the pan is earth because it's touching an earth wire, and it also reduces the time you can switch the power on off because you don't have to lift and lower the pan. Third-party problems also through stations. If we've got a bridge we can't deal with, why not electrify through the station? The bi-mode can get it to 100 metres out of the station and then the electric can take over. So there's different versions of bi-mode. There's what they've ordered, so it's the diesel electric bi-mode. So batteries included. There's electric versions potentially in the near future, or even hydrogen fuel cells. Environments. We've not done a lot of environmental assessments as of yet, but we've got the usual, we're fully expecting the usual culprits of great crested newts and slowworms along the route. However, animals that we have, or creatures that we have already identified, anyone know what that is? Again? No. No. It's a weasel. So weasels and snakes. We didn't actually have to look very far for those. In fact, we didn't even need to leave the office because most of them can be found within the project management team. So where are we now? CP5. Bridge lifts. These are two bridges that were completed 12 to 18 months ago. So the top right one is Mount Percy. These are between Church, Fenton and York. So some schemes already happening, so advanced works for the route clearance. D-veg and fencing is already underway on the east of Leeds portion, started at Selby, and already quite a long way to Leeds. I'm upsetting Mr. Lawrance in a moment. This Easter 101-hour blockade to rehand Micklefield Junction. Currently it's a left-hand junction off the straight. We're going to rehand the junction to make it a right-hand junction off the curve, so going from 70 to 100 miles an hour on the York leg and dropping the Hull leg straight on to the right from 80 down to 70 to hand it to the predominant usage. Not great for maintenance, putting another junction on the curve instead of on straight, but it's a relatively cheap capex solution with increased opex. So challenges. I say a lot more challenges than that. There's another 20 odd that I haven't got time to go through.
So this is just a bit of a few closing slides talking about development pipeline, because quite a lot of the stuff that James has talked about, things that are way off into CP6 by the time we're building it. With Northwest electrification, it's going to be done in the next year and a bit. Also Cord nearly done, so the question is what are we doing next? So here's a few other things to think about. New gen, so anybody know what that is? Cumbria Coast upgrades associated with new nuclear development. So we're supporting the GRIP 3 development of that within our development team. Exciting project, could be many millions. Am I allowed to say that? Many millions? I think so. Suffice to say, it's not only new nuclear, it's also looking at all sorts of other regional development schemes along the coast to sort of string all that stuff together and make a more sort of system integrated scheme. You've heard about this stuff, haven't you, I think, this morning? Yeah. So that's pretty exciting. It's not really next year, is it? I think 2040 odd. But there's other stuff like depots and platforms for the train franchises. NWEP phases 6 and 7 are still in development. Work package C between Oxford Road and Piccadilly is still in the mix, so all sorts of things to get our teeth into, but I guess the big question is, when are they all going to get confirmed? So how long have I got, Dave? Am I pushing the boundaries? Ooh, good. Dave's keen for me to do some innovation stuff, so I think we should. So I like this stuff. The survey engineer from my last program's working with us here again. This is a great example of sort of lateral thinking. So these concrete units were part of the Ordsall Cord lateral extension. So they were fabricated in a yard in Ireland, 3D scanned. The piers that they were going to land on were 3D scanned as and when they were constructed, and then the two were compared in the BIM model to make sure it all fits together before these components got shipped over. So we all knew it was going to fit before it was done. So no scratching your heads trying to sort of get your hammers out. We knew it was going to fit. So yeah, that's the model which demonstrates that it's all going to work. Another good thing that really good example of leveraging technology for really good value. So this is the Reeler Track and Reeler 360 scanning capability. So as it says, the Reeler Track surveys track position. The 360 unit does a complete laser scan, and then the output of that can be relayed to anybody's desktop. So across Northern Programmes, in a few weeks' time, anybody can download the relevant files for the relevant route sections to their desktop, and then they can look at this sort of stuff, which gives a sort of 3D real and also sort of 10 mil position accuracy, sort of measurable capability. So that's hugely valuable. It stops people going on site, gives us a lot of capability without having to put a lot of people on the line side. I'm not sure if this is useful or if it's just cool tech that our survey man really, really likes, but this is basically using 3D goggles to view that stuff. So if you've got a survey sighting committee, you can stick the goggles on them. I'm not sure. I'd love to see the photo of that. And they can sort of sit at driver's eye position, or they can walk through the route to see it from any perspective. But yeah, it starts to bring home how this sort of teenage computer game tech can really help. So that's it from me, but hopefully you're as excited as we are to be involved in this stuff at this sort of at this time. Hopefully you share that. Mr. Chairman, take it away.